Hello, everyone. I welcome you back to class. In this video, I would be doing a trade breakdown, a trade that I executed a few days ago. It's a trade on USDCAD, and it was a sell on USDCAD. So this was on January 27. Today is January 29. Okay. So it was a very, very decent sell, and it got to full TP. So I'll be explaining the idea behind the trade, my thought process, and everything else. So this would be a proper breakdown video. So I hosted a poll in my Telegram channel asking if you all wanted a video breakdown of this trade. And 94% said yes, and 6% said no. So the majority wants it, and that is why I am making it. I really hope that by the end of this video, you learn something new. And for candle matrix enthusiasts, your understanding of my concept would expand, would grow. Now, I haven't really decided yet if this video breakdown would make it to YouTube. But in case it does, this is my Telegram channel. If this video would be uploaded to YouTube, I would be adding the link to this Telegram channel in the description on YouTube. Then, so this is my Telegram channel. This is where I post trade ideas. I also teach candle matrix here as well. So there are some stuff that probably did not mention in the YouTube candle matrix mentorship that I share here. So it's important for you to also be here if you're not. So I'll be leaving the link in the description if this video makes it to YouTube. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the charts. Now, for us, now for everyone listening to me, this is my concept again. It's nothing that you can find in public. You can't find this in public. There is nobody talking about this. I am the creator of the candle matrix concepts and also the originator of counting candlesticks. I already explained this in a few videos, 2 videos already, in a playlist that I started on YouTube. So in case you'd want to know more about this concept, if you're seeing this for the very first time, or if you're hearing about it for the very first time, in case you want to know more about this, then please refer to my YouTube channel, go through the playlist videos, and you'd get a better understanding of it. Now, my approach to this is very simple. It doesn't take me time. This is probably the fastest technical analysis that you'd ever come across, right? Because it takes me barely 5 minutes to run a complete top-down analysis on any pair using the candle matrix concept, right? So the very first thing that you want to do, or the very first thing that I did here, or I always do everywhere else, is I identify the controlling cycle. I identify the controlling cycle. That is the first thing that I do. So that would be the first, number one. I identify the controlling cycle. Number two, I I identify subcycles in line with controlling cycle. And controlling cycles, subcycles, these are things that I have already talked about. I've already exposed this stuff on YouTube, right? So I don't think I would be sharing any information that I haven't already shared on YouTube. I still understand that I am supposed to create more videos, right, in the playlist, because the mentorship candle matrix open mentorship is not yet complete. There are still some stuffs that I am supposed to reveal. Right? We still haven't talked about SMT. So I did not apply SMT to this USDCAD trade. That is why I can talk about it. Right? So the very first thing I want to do is I want to identify the controlling cycle. The second is I want to identify subcycles that are in line with the controlling cycle. So I already explained this in the YouTube video. I said that once you have a controlling cycle, you want to ignore subcycles that are in the opposite direction of the controlling cycle. So the controlling cycle determines the trend, right? It determines the trend. It determines the higher time frame bias. It determines the direction of the market, right? So it's because of the controlling cycle. That is why I was selling USDCAD. And I have been selling USDCAD for a long time. I have been majorly bearish since last year on USDCAD. And I'm going to show you where the idea for the sales began. So when I identify the controlling cycle and also identify subcycles in line with the controlling cycle, what I do is finally I frame my entry, right? And then I'm going to explain how I took this trade or how I entered into this trade for you. So the controlling cycle for this pair or for this trade was coming from the monthly time frame. Although we have completed the cycle, the bearish cycle on the monthly, but it's still very, very important for me to explain this to you. So I'll go ahead to clear all these drawings and I'll start afresh. Okay. Now, for this, if you look closely, you would see that first of all, the most important thing, right, is that there is a fair value gap here. There's a fair value gap. So just to build a proper context, I do not ignore PDRAs. I also consider PDRAs, but I use PDRAs as confluences, or let's say I use them to complement my bias or my expectation from price. Right? So there is an obvious FVG here, but I need to be sure that this FVG would be able to hold price, right? I need to be sure that this FVG will be able to hold price, right? So I do this by making sure that this is a valid dealing range. And we can identify valid dealing ranges by counting candlesticks, like I explained in the videos on YouTube. So if you look closely, you're going to see that we have two candles from the fair value gap, right? This fair value gap low to the low created here. We have two candlesticks, 1 and 2. So I'll go ahead to mark the high of that candle and also the low of that candle. Now within this range high and range low, we have 1, 2, 3 candlesticks. So we have more candlesticks inside of the range than outside of it, right? It took more candlesticks to be inside of the range than it took to create the range, right? It's usually tricky to explain this, but if you watch the video on YouTube, you'd understand this perfectly because I spent the whole bunch of time explaining this stuff. So we have 2 candles that created the range. Then inside of the range, we had 3. So since we have more candles inside of the range, we can expect price to take out BSL and reverse and go for SSL, right? So this is a valid daily range. Now price went higher and swept what? Price went higher and swept this buy side liquidity, and trading above the buy side liquidity is also traded into a fair value gap, which is a bearish fair value gap, and this represents a PDRA for ICT students. All right, so now BSL has been taken, we can expect SSL to also be swept. So let me go to the weekly time frame. Now, this is the controlling cycle. This is why I have been bearish since last year. So since November, thereabouts, I have been bearish. Everything properly documented in my Telegram channel. So if you want to understand these concepts better, if you want to study my trades, that is where you go to my Telegram channel, right? So I'm saying this for those people that will be seeing this on YouTube, right? And yeah, so you'd get to know where I post these trades, setups, and where I share my thoughts too. All right. So now let me go to the weekly time frame, and I want to jump to this week's price action. I want to jump to this week's price action. Yeah. So before the start of this week, we already had something, right? Because I maxed out this fair value gap as well as a more like as a reason to be bearish, you know, just for more conviction on that bearish bias, right? So last week we had a very massive sell-off. So I expected lower prices today. And if I was to count candles just for more context, this is one candlestick here. And this candlestick formed a range, and this range high to range low, is housing one or more candlesticks, right? So it's housing this candle and part of this one as well. So if we go to the lower time frame, you would see that we'll have more candlesticks outside of this range. Sorry, lesser candlesticks outside of this range here, from this range high to range low, than within it or inside of it, right? So I'll clear this because I'd like to explain this properly. So going back to the daily, let's go to the daily. Let me show you what I mean. So you see this high here to this low. Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's count the candlesticks inside of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then part of the 5th candlestick was inside of it. So we have more candlesticks inside than outside. Now, why didn't price just reverse from here? Because there is a daily fair value gap, right? So price had to go into that daily fair value gap before reversing. So this is something that I would also teach, you know, how to build a proper narrative while applying candle matrix. So for the new week, we understand that we are bearish. We understand that this low from the monthly time frame is calling price, and this low from the daily is also calling price, right? So this becomes our DOL, this becomes our DOL as well. So we'll start looking for selling opportunities. Remember, the first step is to identify the controlling cycle, and we have managed to do that. The controlling cycle is bearish. We're in an active bearish cycle on the monthly time frame, and this is the opposite liquidity. This is the sell side liquidity for that dealing range on the monthly time frame, and this one here is the sell side liquidity for the dealing range on the weekly. I think I call this daily, no, the weekly, right? So back to the daily. So we want to look for selling opportunities on the daily to attack this low and also this low. So for my entry, I took this trade. As you can see, I entered quite early on this trade, and I would explain why. I would explain why I entered from where I entered here, right? So what I shared to the members of my private community is this trade. I shared this trade with them. I shared the 4-hour entry with them, but I had already entered before that. Now, this is the first draw on liquidity. And what we are doing is what I was doing here is I was waiting for a sub cycle in line with the controlling cycle, right? Very, very simple. So I was simply waiting, and it is something that always comes, something that always happens, it always happens. Now, first of all, if you look closely, right, what would you see here? You would see a fair value gap, an FVG, right here. And we understand that FVGs attract price, right? So there is a high chance that price might want to tap into this FVG. Now, before this happens, I would like to see some form of sub-cycle some form of dealing range forming, right? And I can identify these dealing ranges by counting candlesticks. So I want to see some form of dealing range forming. And if I spot this very close to the FVG, then I know, right? I know that this is my dealing range, and I wait for the buy side liquidity to be swept first. As I am bearish, right? I wait for the buy side liquidity to be swept, and I wait for price to tap into that FVG, and that is where I frame my trades from. Now, in this case, I understand that price has formed something, right? You can see one candle, one 4-hour candlestick here. And this is overshadowing this candlestick. So the next candlestick failed to take out the high or the low of this candle. Now, this is an active dealing range, right? Because if you go to the lower time frame, maybe the 1-hour time frame or so, and you count the candlesticks, you'd see that you have more equal or more candlesticks inside of the range than what it took to create the range. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So there must be more inside of it, right? So even if the next candlestick takes out the high, if you go to the 1-minute time frame and count it, you'll see that there is more inside of it, right? So that's the whole logic. That's the logic. So next, let me just move it forward a bit. Now we still have something on the 1-hour time frame. The same stuff. This candle closing within the range of the previous. So here, this is what I did. First of all, I understand, and I'll probably teach this. This is something that I don't even talk about, but this is an active liquidity here. Why? Because it formed the candlestick. The candlestick after this candle here, this candlestick, it failed to take out the high or the low of this, right? So coming back to it, if price sweeps this high, I can expect price to also go for this BSL. Now, I don't want to mention this, right? Because it's like new stuff and even more advanced stuff in the candle matrix concept. But yeah, let me just state that, right? So that you understand that this goes deeper than just counting candlesticks. So, buy side liquidity has been swept. There is a 4-hour, there is a 4-hour, sorry, there is a 4-hour FVG here, right? And I expect price to tap into that FVG. So this is where I took my entry from. Personally, right? This is where I took my entry from this high. And my stop loss was above this one here. Initially, my stop loss was above this one. This candle's high. And final target was here. So for me, this was a 7-hour trade, right? For me, this was a 7-hour trade. For the members of my private community, it was a 5-hour trade. So I had already entered this even before London session, because I think this triggered before London session. Okay, so it triggered here. Yeah, this was before London session. We already identified the subcycle on the 4-hour time frame. BSL has been swept. Now we can expect a reversal from here. So for my entry in my public community, I entered on now, yeah, so on the 4-hour time frame. Price formed, so just before this, right? So I was waiting for a bearish candle close. That is the first. And price didn't just form a bearish candle close. Price also formed a valid order block, right? So this last up candle before this down move, this aggressive down move, right? That is the order block. And that is exactly how I framed the trade for the community, the entry for the community. So this was where I framed it. Stop loss above here, because now I know that this high should not be rated anymore. So my initial stop loss for the first trade was moved to this high as well. Then final target was the monthly SSL. So this was a 5-hour trade, like I said. And yeah, so price just played out. This took 2 days to play out, to hit the full TP. This took 2 days. So yeah, it was a very, very good win. It was a very, very good win, very decent win. So this was the call, USDCAD sell, TP1 and all of that, shared in the private community. And it was a very, very good trade. So far this week, it's been really positive for me in my trading. And I look forward to more wins before the end of the week. So I hope this video breakdown was insightful. I hope you were able to learn, a thing or two, new stuff especially. And to those that are interested in the candle matrix concept, well, I haven't really opened up a public mentorship for that, public paid mentorship for that. So for now, it's mostly private. It's only private for now, but yeah, at some point later in the year, maybe Q2 or early Q3, would have a very public mentorship. So I hope this was insightful. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for always being curious to learn something new. I really hope that this knowledge would improve your trading. Well, until next time.